Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I'm here with my friend, colleague, a very accomplished radio talk show and otherwise host, Charles Butler. And we're going to talk about two subjects which are really burning in the news these days. Number one, the attempted assassinations of Donald Trump. And secondly, the recent indictment of New York City Mayor Eric Adams, notwithstanding the fact that Rudy Giuliani was just disbarred this week by the DC bar, a despicable bunch of leftist hacks, I might add, that have been going after conservatives, people of faith, and others for several years, including yours truly. They haven't succeeded yet. But I want to talk about these topics. Let's go to the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. It's becoming clearer and clearer that this was intentional. The government knew, to use the term government loosely, and in a way that doesn't deserve to be called a government. They knew there were Iranian hit squads that were being sent to kill Trump. Others wanted to kill Trump. They knew about that. They provided no security. I'll repeat that, none. And I believe that this was done intentionally, either inside of the Biden-Harris regime, which is now the Harris-Biden regime, or someone inside of Secret Service, which is still the regime, which is administered to by Alejandro Mayorkas, that complete clown who was impeached, but which was blocked by Senator Schumer from actually being convicted. So I want to get your thoughts on this, but one of the things we're going to do, Charles, is that I'm going to commission a citizens grand jury. I've been doing it to investigate, and there's a lot of information out there right now, and we have Freedom of Information Act requests pending as of yesterday, right up to today's date. We're going to seek the indictment of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Mayorkas for this. I believe they are personally responsible for what's going on. They wanted Trump dead. Because at the time of that first assassination attempt, Trump was leading by far Biden. And so they created the condition for the Iranians or someone else to do it, paying off this kid, paying off this other clown, in Palm Beach for the second assassination attempt. But I believe they're directly responsible, not just with regard to their rhetoric, which is intended to incite violence against Trump, but also intentionally having the Secret Service and others not do their job. Your thoughts?
The incompetence level of the Butler, PA situation is frightening. A Boy Scout could have planned better protection than the Secret Service did. I'm glad that the local officials did the little bit that they did. And God was just with Trump, because at the end of the day, he was left exposed. There was no coming back for this guy, man. I don't know how he got out of it.
Well, I don't think it's incompetence anymore. I don't think that you can write that off. This was intentional one way or the other, whether it came from the top inside the White House or the Department of Homeland Security, or whether it was at a lower middle level. It had to be intentional, because just what we learned yesterday is that there was a Secret Service agent that actually saw the police running towards the shooter and did not inform the Secret Service that was guarding Trump on the dais. Now, I'm not even sure I believe that at all. I don't believe anything. And given their rhetoric today, which they're keeping up, Trump is a threat to democracy, he's Hitler, he's a tyrant, everything else, they want him dead. And these people are vicious, they're evil, and frankly, they'll pull all stops to maintain power, short of actually pulling out a gun and pulling it themselves. But in effect, that's what I believe that they did by having someone else do the dirty work for them. So in any event, this is something that needs to be further investigated. We're not going to get the truth from the FBI. Today, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I was watching an interview with Melania Trump on Fox News. Nobody will watch it outside of people that are already going to vote for Trump, unfortunately. But she was talking about how the FBI came into her house at Mar-a-Lago, sent by this ultra-leftist, Trump-hating magistrate judge, Bruce Reinhart, who was sought out specifically by special counsel Jack Smith because they knew he would sign the warrant. And they were going through literally her underwear. Of course, she didn't use those words, but that's what she meant. violating her privacy. This is our so-called government. It is working against the people. It is not for the people. It is not by the people. It is tyrannical. And frankly, unless we do something about it, and we're trying to do that peacefully and legally at Freedom Watch, the roof's going to blow off the so-called house here, I think, at some point in time, and we're going to be in a bloody revolution. But let's move on to another issue.
Unless we're going to be in a revolution, huh?
I think we're headed to that fact. I think there's enough people out there right now, not you or me, but they're prepared to take matters into their own hands. The other side of the coin has been quiet and peaceful, mostly, but the left has not been. And at some point, you push too hard, and something's going to break. And we don't want to see that happen. That's why we do what we do at Freedom Watch.
That's who you have to watch out for, those quiet ones.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking about assassins. I'm talking about a massive revolt. I mean,
I know what you're talking about.
I believe that January 6th, as peaceful as it was, and it was overwhelmingly peaceful, was the precursor to what's to come. And
I wouldn't even classify it that way, because those people went there. It was not an insurrection. The FBI said it was not an insurrection. And they still claim it was an insurrection. It's the funniest thing. You had Director Way say it was not an insurrection. This guy, both the Senate and the House Democrats, well, Mr. Ray, how do you classify the insurrection of January 6th? He said it wasn't an insurrection, first of all. And the media went right back, well, the insurrection. It's like they think we're stupid. It's like, if I say it's an insurrection, regardless of what it really was.
If Bill Clinton had started, it would have been called an erection, I think, probably. But it was more like an uprising. That's a little humor.
Well, it really was. I mean, from what I understand, and I have two friends who were involved and were charged with interfering with an election. And these people are nobody's talking about this, Larry, but people have been put in jail and have been held in jail for 2 and 3 years, man.
Oh yeah, I know, because I'm working with some of them, and we have lawsuits.
One of my buddies,
the FBI and the Justice Department.
One of my buddies went to court. He decided his court date came up in April. He went to court, and the prosecutor said, "Look, the feds, look, we'll give you 20 months if you just plead guilty to the interference, yada 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 yada." Larry said, 20 months for doing what? And the guy said, well, you interfered with the election. He said, no, I didn't. And he said, right here on tape, you showed me walking in the Capitol. I took some video. I walked back out to the steps, took some video, and went home. Went back to my hotel. He said, yeah, you're going to get 20 months for that. He said, no, I'm not.
I have clients like that. And when you look at the pre-sentencing reports of some of these defendants, they'll get a lighter sentence if they confess that they did something wrong. It's kind of like the DC bar. Even if you did nothing unethical, you have to confess that you did something wrong. This is what it is. It's walking the plank, before they take you to the guillotines. It's disgusting. And this is the segue, because the basis of what's going on with our corrupt Justice Department, which is more like a Gestapo, and our FBI, is to silence dissent, is to silence our First Amendment rights. And it's a warning across the bow. Do not rise up, or we will chop your head off. We'll take you to the guillotines.
Well, one of the first times I ever heard anyone attack the First Amendment was Barack Obama. I don't remember anyone else before Obama attacking the First Amendment and talking about how the Constitution was obsolete. Another person who talked about how the Constitution was obsolete was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who I vehemently detested with every cell in my body. She did more damage to this country and to relationships and to families than any other person, than any other American ever, creating the latchkey children.
Well, let's talk about her some other time. I don't like her either, frankly. And she also sat on cases where her husband owned stocks and corporations. She was corrupt, among other things. But this is something judges do. They don't care. And it's not just her. Federal judges in particular, even Supreme Court justices, they got more conflicts of interest. Their head would spin quicker than The Exorcist if you ever found out what they are. But I want to use this as a segue to talk about the indictment of the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, which it reminds me of an indictment many years earlier of Jim Traficant, a Democrat from Ohio, who was opposed to Clinton and what he was doing. And to put him back in his place, the Democrat Justice Department had him, under Clinton, had him indicted. Now, Eric Adams has been very vocal and very critical of the Harris-Biden regime. I call it the Harris-Biden regime at this point, over all of the illegal immigrants running across the border, sex traffickers, drug traffickers, human traffickers, terrorists, purveyors of fentanyl. So, yeah, he's probably guilty of what he's been charged with. But you could probably say that about thousands of politicians around this country. He's being charged with, laundering money for campaign contributions. Apparently, he took a lot of money from Turkey and laundered it through straw donors. But the fact that they're going after him, a Democrat Justice Department, is a warning to those who will raise their head and challenge the Harris-Biden administration. And it goes hand in hand with what happened with regard to J6 and the biggest investigation of FBI history, as we face the prospect of many terrorist attacks in this country with all the terrorists that have been running across our border. So give me your thoughts on that, Charles. But to me, why Eric Adams? It's selective prosecution in many ways. It's really convenient. They did the same thing with Senator Menendez. Menendez opposed the foreign policy of Joe Biden over Cuba. He's Cuban because Biden was appeasing Cuba, wanting to open relations, and they had him indicted too. He's a crook, no doubt, but why him and why not others? That is what really bothers me.
Well, I read the indictment. Eric was living large. The Wall Street Journal does an excellent example of the malfeasance and the violations that Eric Adams engaged in. He got a $15,000 upgrade on an airline that only paid $600 for his ticket, and it goes on and on and on. And he got about $14 million in donations that they had to run through the Match for Funds program, and it was an interesting indictment. But
I'm not condoning what he did.
It's no worse than anyone else. As we pointed out, if you look at any politician, I think you'll have, or most politicians, you'll have the same thing going on.
Well, look at Joe Biden. Over $20 million from communist China, Ukraine, Russia, and Romania. Or maybe it's Bulgaria. $20 million, right? What Eric Adams got was chicken feed compared to that. But he walks off scot-free with his equally criminal wife. He will definitely, if Harris loses, pardon his son, Hunter. If Harris wins, she'll do the job, just like Gerald Ford did with Nixon. But this is, what you're talking about here is that they always burn the little guy. They burn the middle guy. The big guys, Democrat and Republican, they have a little agreement between themselves, tacit or express. We will not touch you. We'll have a sacrificial lambs. We'll take them to the altar. We'll slaughter them, and the American people will be happy.
Well, I think the American people have woken up, for lack of a better term, and it's not the kind of woke that the leftists wanted. The leftists got seriously outed in that we had 4 years of Donald Trump, and we saw how things were better than the 4 years we've had under Joe Biden. And people are saying, even black people who you could not convince to vote for a Republican if you paid them $1,000, are saying, my life was better under Donald Trump. Kamala Harris does not care about me. Kamala Harris is not black. I mean, you should hear the vitriol that's directed at Kamala Harris in the black community.
Let me ask you, is she black?
No, she's not. But you should hear the vitriol directed her way in the black community. People are tired of, see, I've always said that the era uh, of electing black people to office because they're black is over. In the old days, the blacks that we elected to office were true civil rights leaders. These people today, they go to Washington, they go to the state capitals, they go to City Hall, and they're Democrats. They don't vote a black agenda. They don't vote for their constituents. What sensible reason would you have to bring in 30 million illegal people? And in Chicago, Illinois, a stronghold. And I was a talk show host there for 7 years. These people are rallying together and they're voting Trump. They are mad as heck that the mayor of Chicago is giving these illegal aliens room and board, debit card. They are mad as hell. When you talk about revolt, you look at in fact, an article this week said that the black gangs were going to attack. What's this new gang from Venezuela? Whatever,
Trey Gowdy.
Whatever it is. They're going to go after these guys and they're going to have a gang war. They're not going to let them come into the neighborhood. You cannot come into our neighborhood.
We know that from Miami. The Italian mafia was always quite, quote, civilized. They killed themselves. They killed those who didn't pay their debts, etc. But the Latin America mafia, Central America, South America, indiscriminately has killed people in Miami. They go into shopping malls, they shoot stuff up, kind of stuff like that. You saw the movie Scarface. That's what we're talking about, these people. I got 3 words to say to you, 2 words to say to you, but I won't say it for decorum purposes. Shut the you-know-what up. But this is what you're dealing with here, and this is brought to us by Kamala Harris. There she is, border czar. She's going to go down to the border tomorrow. She's going to pretend that she's concerned. She's not concerned at all. She just wants votes. And it's frankly going
all
to
she's going to do is remind people. All
Yeah.
she's going to do is remind people, Larry, that she said, well, I haven't been to Europe either.
Actually, she has been to Europe.
I haven't been to Europe either.
I liked it when she went to Ukraine, and it was trying to make peace with Poland. And she says, this is very serious. Russia is a very big country. Ukraine is a small country. Russia is trying to take over Ukraine. That's the extent of her foreign policy experience. I think it even exceeds the mocking, which wasn't fair, of Sarah Palin, who said she could see Russia from her kitchen window.
Which she never said.
No, actually, I always thought Sarah Palin was pretty sharp. They destroyed her, unfairly. I've met her on a number of occasions. Sharp lady. And I thought she gave one of the greatest speeches ever at the Republican National Convention. But it was downhill from there because John McCain stabbed her in the back, and so did his staff. But that is another issue for another day. But we have about 7 minutes left. We're going to keep this one short. We'll bring you back. I wanted to get this out here today because we are dealing here with a situation that just gets worse and worse. They say about.
But let me ask you this, Larry. How do you feel? See, I don't pay any attention to the media or to the polling. How do you feel, or what do you hear out there from people that you talk to? All I hear is people talking about voting for Trump. I don't see any bumper stickers for Biden. I see bumper stickers for Trump. Yeah, I don't see any flags for Biden. In Chicago, a guy was telling me he went on a boat ride Saturday, a black Republican boat ride, and they had a big Trump flag flying on the boat. People were honking, and they had Trump flags in Chicago, on boats in Chicago. This is Chicago, dude. This is not New York. This is Chicago. Democrats solid. Trump is got people got Trump signs in their front yards, dude.
I think that's generally true, except there's one guy at the Starbucks I go to in the morning, some fat guy who calls me white trash because I walked in there with a jacket months ago because I had gone to Donald Trump's inauguration back in 2016. It was 2017 at that time. But I think you're right. I mean, I don't know who's going to win. I would have predicted right after the debate because Kamala Harris had this thing down. She had memorized her lines. She's not very smart, we know that, but she had a good delivery. She had practiced with all of her Hollywood friends, facial expressions and everything else. And it looked really good for her, but I think she's sinking like a rock right now. Every time she opens her mouth, it even is embarrassing to Oprah. Oprah had to try to rehabilitate her.
Well, that interview that she did, I saw clips of it today. It was horrible. It was horrible.
She's a moron. I mean, that's the thing. And I hate to say this because it doesn't sound nice, but she slept her way to the top. That's how she got where she is.
Well, I told you about.
Slept her way to the top by getting on top. So
I told you I saw her with Willie Brown when she was 29 and he was 60, and that was his date. And he was very clear to us guys that was his date. And I'll tell you offline what he did to solidify that was his date.
Yeah, well, too bad for both of them, really. They're both very questionable people.
Willie had fun.
Yeah, go on. Go on, Charles.
He had fun.
Yeah. Well, he may have fun again. Who knows? I mean, with a husband
no,
like
they're not close as they used to be because Willie told her, he said, "Look, don't run for VP. Just stay as a senator. You'll have a lot longer political career. If you run for VP," he said, "you're not going to win because America will not elect a woman president."
Well, America's changed, and
I don't think America's changed that much. I think when you look at Kamala Harris and you compare her, like today when she's talking to Belinsky, I mean, she's weak, man. She's weak.
Yeah, we know that.
Let me finish, Larry. We don't have a Maggie Thatcher. We don't have a Golda Meir in American politics. These women in American politics are perpetrators. Hillary Clinton, perpetrators. The first thing Hillary Clinton did when she got a chance was to cry, "Oh, the boys are picking on me." Hey, there's no room for crying on the world stage when you're dealing with dictators. Like, Trump picks up the phone and says, "Hey," he told the boy in North Korea, Xi Jinping, he said, "Look, you shoot more missiles over Tokyo and Honolulu, and I'm gonna turn your country to ashes." The missiles stop.
As our final point, I think Trump made a very good point yesterday. Look, the Iranians, it's now confirmed even by our corrupt FBI, have sent several hit squads and are still trying to kill Donald Trump. And yet Biden says nothing, Harris says nothing, and Trump said at a rally, I think it was in Georgia, he said, "If I was president, I'd tell them, I'd blow them to smithereens. You touch our president, your whole country goes up in smoke." And I don't agree with sending all of Iran up in smoke, but I do agree with taking the regime out and taking out the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and the military.
Well, that's not going to happen without taking out the whole country, man.
Well, it may not. And if you have to do it, you have to do it. We did it in World War II. We did it at Dresden. We did it with the Germans.
I mean, I'm a military guy, so I don't have a whole bunch of sympathy about civilians and this whole civilian thing.
You know what? Most of the Arab world, as well as Israel, would be happy if they were taken out. They're a threat to the Sunni Muslims. They're a threat to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia wants them gone.
And the people tried to do an uprise, and Barack Obama wouldn't support them. After he told them if they did an overthrow of the government, he'd support them. When they tried, he abandoned them, and they got.
Oh yeah, I know because I had cases representing broadcasters at Voice of America. Obama had them broadcast messages worldwide in favorable of the regime. The head of the Persian News Network, his father was an advisor and still is to the Ayatollah. That's Obama. You know, and Obama sympathized with Iran for sure, and so did Biden.
Whose father is an advisor to Iran?
The head of the Persian news section of Voice of
Oh,
America during Obama's
okay.
they were persecuting some of my clients over there, and Obama instructed them to send out positive messages with Iran because he wanted to kiss the rear end of Iran, you know, to try to make some kind of deal over nuclear weapons. And then, of course, you had John Kerry, who was violating American law when he was negotiating while Trump was still president with the Iranians. And the whole problem is the Iranians. And here's the irony of the whole thing: they're not just an enemy of Israel; they're enemy to most of the Arab world. They want them gone. They want Hamas gone. They want Hezbollah gone. There's a great potential, you know, conglomerate of allies over there. But what is Biden doing with his Secretary of State, this idiot who looks like he's scared of his shadow, Anthony Blinken? He's cowering from doing anything, and Iran just gets more and more emboldened, and that creates issues with Hamas. It creates issues with Hezbollah, and it's creating a terrible situation not just for Israel but for Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Arab world. So, you know, this is where we are, and this is why I can't tell people who to vote for. I don't, as the head of a nonprofit. People can guess who I will vote for, but if Kamala Harris wins, it's the end of humanity as we know it. I'm quoting Elon Musk. That was on his X page or Twitter page today. That was his quote. If Kamala Harris gets elected, it's the end of humanity.
Well, I don't see how those stupid people in PA can even dare vote for Kamala Harris. It just amazes me how stupid they are.
Well, I hate to say this, but our supporters are not stupid. Your supporters are not stupid. But currently, most of the American people are stupid, drugged out, or drunk, and or not paying attention to what's going on, and they think, oh, this is just going to go away. And that's why I do what I do, because I don't mean that they're stupid permanently. They can be made intelligent. And you and I, Charles, have to do that. We have to educate them, and we better do it quickly, because Kamala Harris signals the ends of humanity. And what's even worse than Kamala Harris? That fat slob that she made vice presidential candidate, this communist who believes in sex change operations for kids behind the backs of parents. What a despicable, disgusting human being he is. And this is going to permeate the administration. It's going to be permeated with socialists, communists, atheists, and perverts. That's what you're going to get. So that's my final word. You can have your final word. Please go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause. We need to rise up with God's grace, God's divine providence, and fight this. We cannot allow this country and the world to be destroyed. freedomwatchusa.org. Thank you, brother. Where can they reach you? Where can they reach you?
Thank you. Hey, you know, I'm broadcasting at you can get me on YouTube at The Reality Check with Charles Butler.
Okay. Charles is a good man. He's very candid and he's funny.
All right.
Good.
Thanks. Thanks, Larry.
Good evening, my good friend.
You too.
Bye-bye.